Hello, this is Jack Scott. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida Atlantic University Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, the CARD Center here for Palm Beach and the Treasure Coast. And thank you for joining and coming in wherever you are. Doesn't matter that you're here or far away. My topic this morning is safety for children with autism. And this is a topic that's near and dear to me. It's one that I have a very special interest in, as you'll hear. If you're here, it's a special topic for you as well. I have a PowerPoint. It's much more PowerPoint than makes sense. Just too many words on it. But and if you want that, you can request it from us, and we're happy to send it to you or your organization. Because we're eager to get the word about safety for children with autism out there. So let me begin. I'm going to bring my PowerPoint up and we'll have that happen. Okay, we should have PowerPoint there, and here we go. As I mentioned, this is our topic, keeping children safe. And my focus is on what I'll be referring to as unintentional injuries. I'm not focused, well, it's important, on things like kids being molested or injured, abused by adults. That's important. But for us in the autism world, the bigger problem is really the unintentional injuries for these children. So there you go. I'm giving a lot of good information here, I hope, but everybody is responsible for what happens with their children, and that's an important thing for me to know. Okay. Yes, I'm feeling like this a lot of the time here with COVID. I'm working from home, but it's crazy. We're in a crazy time. Let's face it, and it's nutty, and it's nuttier. It's nutty for parents, but it's nutty for kids too. It's very hard on kids with autism. Let's face it. If you have a child with autism, you provide care for a child with autism, or teach a child with autism. You know that. It's no secret. Our motivations are our children. This little boy is a charming little kid, but he runs away. He runs away a lot. I'll use the term wandering and elopement. And he even has, you'll notice this little device here on his ankle. This is a Project Lifesaver electronic tracking device that his parents have voluntarily arranged for. They have it. They want him to wear it. He does wear it. And it allows in our case, the Palm Beach Sheriff's Department to track the little boy in the event that he goes missing. In spite of his parents' very diligent efforts to keep him contained and keep him in safe places, he often will try to run away. So, but this is part of my motivation, and I'm sure that you can insert a picture of a child here or children that fit there. Some of my Jack Scott's special motivation on this comes from this little boy, Jared, who I never met. I never met Jared McGuire. Jared died in 2006, and he eloped from home, and he was later found dead due to drowning. In his community, here's his community, this small pond. He drowned in this small pond. Sadly, there's his body at the edge of the pond, and here's a deputy from Palm Beach County, Deputy Ray Griffith. He's either drying his eyes because he's sweating, but I think he's crying, because I know from talking to a lot of police that finding a child with autism, any child who's dead, is one of the hardest things they have to deal with. They work super hard to help make sure that doesn't happen. When they search hard to recover a child. But this motivated me to really help get this going. I've presented on this topic to the Federal Interagency Coordinating Committee for Autism. And that's where I brought forward a lot of these pictures of these little children who drowned. These are children with autism, adorable kids who have drowned. And it only takes a few minutes for them to get away, to find water. We don't know why they find water. We don't know for sure. We have some ideas to the general motivations on it, but why there's such eagerness to do that, we're just not really sure. But we know it happens. Many of you may have been familiar with the Avante case in New York City back in 2013. A huge reward. This little boy left his school, just wandered from the school. There were videotape of it, and nobody did anything, which was really terribly, terribly sad. And his parents have a multi-million-dollar lawsuit with the city of New York and the schools. Sadly, he was found dead several weeks later. He had gone into water almost probably very quickly after he eloped. This did give rise to a bill in Congress that was passed in 2018 called Kevin and Avante's Law. The other little boy was from Iowa, I think, and they helped provide the names for a federal law to help give state governments more opportunity to help prevent autism elopements. But it's not funded very well. So if you know any of the federal politicians, you might talk to them about Kevin and Avante's Law and get more money for that. One of the things that law would help promote is electronic tracking for children with autism. And it also works for seniors with Alzheimer's and other children with disabilities, although it's mostly children with autism who wander. You see this officer here, he has an antenna, and with that and this tracking device that he's holding in his hand, they can help locate a child with who's wearing one of these devices. And things like this can be very effective. In Palm Beach County, we have options for this, and I think in most of our other counties up north, Okeechobee, St. Lucie County. But you'll want to find out if one of these systems is available in your area. If your child has any tendency to wander, it can be important. This little boy in Miramar, he sadly drowned 2 years ago. But it's this one, Caitlin, who her drowning just 2 years after Jared. I was the director of the CARD program here. Had written a book on autism. I thought I was an expert. I did not know that there was a very high risk for unintentional injury and death for children with autism. I didn't know that. Most of my CARD colleagues didn't know that, the other directors, the other CARD staff. And I kind of made a promise to Caitlin's dad that I'd help bring this to wider attention. And I think our CARD program has, and I think now all of the CARDs are very, very sensitive to this and include this actively in their program and their intake materials and otherwise. This is from a brochure that we circulated to all of the children with autism in their backpacks for their parents to consider, and have tips on how to prevent especially the drowning deaths that usually are coupled with elopement. We probably are looking at drowning we know that drowning for children in general, not children with autism, but all children, for children 1 to 4 is the largest cause of death in the United States, more than heart issues or leukemia or anything. And for children with autism, it almost certainly goes beyond the age of 4 to probably 10 or 11. We don't have solid enough data because of how deaths are recorded to allow this. Sorry, I'm talking about this. This is a tough subject. I move on in shortly, but I try not to terrorize anybody with this and make you feel uncomfortable. But if you have a child with autism, you already know that they're at risk for safety, and I'll be providing a lot of tips to help with that. So children in general are at risk in our society. They're very much at risk. So it's not just children with autism. This scares me to just look at it. I recommend that we not allow children, any of our children, but especially the children with autism, to hang out in the kitchen. We make the kitchen a no-go zone. But in general, children in our society are very much at risk. And we should see injuries as a medical issue. The medical community, the pediatrician community now recognizes this very much as a plague. It is a real problem. And the medical implications are just as solid as if a child had tuberculosis or a child were to have whooping cough. These are serious. This is a serious medical issue. So this graphic gives a general view of the risk factors. It's not specific to children with autism, but infectious diseases in the old days used to be, here it's in red, it used to in the old days be the big purple thing. Now infectious diseases are small. We do have some children with whooping cough. We do have COVID, yes, and this doesn't account for COVID. But nowadays, it's injury that is the big one. And then non-communicable diseases, things like leukemia or a heart valve defect are kind of in the middle. But injury's the big one for us. And here we go. We can see it as an epidemic. Here, this is some data from Florida, just on males, 0 to 14. Injuries are pretty big issue here. Sadly, we do see homicide, which is for the children usually older in this age range. And traffic and transportation become a real big deal, especially for children when they're in their teen years and young adulthood. Traffic safety, transportation, a big problem as well. It doesn't need to be this bad. It's not that kids in general are just going to be unsafe. Sweden is the best country in the world for child safety. Australia is good. There are a few countries that are good, but Sweden is the best. They have 2.73 deaths per 100,000 children. Most of us aren't used to thinking in terms of 100,000 children, but they have about 8 million people there, and they have about 100 child deaths per year. Our Florida rate is over 13 per 100,000. 2.73, it's about 3 versus almost 14. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in terms of what's happening. In Sweden, they're very intentional at all levels of government to ensure safety for children. They started really with seatbelts, with things like airbags, other car safety features. They just go daycare and schools. The safety factors are all over the place. And parents, I think, and teachers are much more safety conscious and safety aware in general. Pediatricians make sure they emphasize that in visits, because for pediatricians and any healthcare provider, you want to keep the child safe, free from injury and disease. Well, injury is a big piece of that. We have a long way to go in Florida. We're doing better. The trend is good, but there's a long way to go. Now, here we have our Centers for Disease Control. We all know them because they give us our autism numbers. They list these major features, and they have drowning here as a big one. And I say we need to add the wandering and elopement for our children with autism is one that I've discussed with CDC officials. And we hope once we're done with the pandemic that we can have discussions with them and move this issue forward. Well, children with autism are obviously at special risk. We have an increasing recognition of how many kids we have with autism now, 1 in 54, with our Centers for Disease Control telling us that, which means that it is much more common. And if a third of them are more severely impaired, that's the population that makes is even more at risk at many ages. Why? Oh my goodness. If you have a child with autism, you already know their comprehension of language. Tyler, don't go by the pool. Don't go out there. The alarm's off today. Don't go by the pool. Well, it simply may not register with Tyler. Their communication deficits in general. Tyler may want to go by the pool, and instead of telling you this, he just goes and does it. The lack of social and environmental awareness can be there. They don't recognize that something is dangerous. The going into water situation is one that, you think that a child would not do that if they're not prepared to swim. Many of them, sometimes they do know how to swim and they still drown. Difficulty with generalization of skills. We teach a skill in one setting. We taught don't go near the pool at our home, but now we're at grandma's and we didn't teach don't go near grandma's pool, and could have had a problem with that. Limited observational learning, where the child doesn't really learn as easily from seeing what other children are doing or what other people are doing. Compliance to adult requests, maybe the child may not come when you ask them to come to you. They may not stop when you ask them to stop. It can be a problem. So yes, the answer is, are they at greater risk for injury, wandering, and even death? The answer is clearly yes. There are data to back this up. I'm going to just breeze through this because my goal is not to make you unduly fearful, but to let you know this is a legitimate problem and then work on, show the strategies that can help minimize these risks. Sorry, the same one again. I think the literal nature of this is a problem where a child sees something like this, where it says pull. Yeah, they're going to do that. That can get them in trouble as well. Well, they're not supposed to pull. This is fire, of course. It can be a problem. We have a number of studies, and I can't show them all. It would just be too scary. But in general, we see a pattern where the number of observed deaths for children with autism, persons with autism overall, is about 3 times that of the general population, of the population of children who don't have autism. Factors that seem to be linked with this. Hold on, don't get too nervous. Children with moderate to more profound intellectual disability are at greater risk. Those who have epilepsy and female. We don't know why females are at greater risk, but many of the studies show that they are. And I mentioned that last slide already. Here's a study from California, which in some ways is similar to Florida. They don't have nearly as many pools as we do. You have a lot of ocean there, but we've got a lot of ocean as well. You can see the ages over here, 2 to 5. Males were 2.3 times more likely to drown. Females 3 times more likely to drown. When you move to the older age of 5 to 10, greater mobility on the part of the child, maybe our supervision is a little less. Males 3.5 times greater. Females 16.8. It just really pushes it up. But when you cut across other age ranges, it's 2.4, which is a pretty hefty multiple. 2.4 times greater risk for children. And you note the female gender is at a much higher level as well. There are fewer females with autism, but sadly, they are at greater risk. And we tend to provide less supervision for a child when they're female, thinking perhaps they're going to be safer. But for girls with autism, we need to double up on our supervision for safety, not go slack. One of the biggest problems, and in our South Florida situation, really the big problem is elopement or wandering. I'll use these terms interchangeably. Running away, you may see it that way. We know with a very, very good study in 2016 that 37% of, almost 38% of children with autism eloped just in the previous year. About half of them, of younger children, elope, and elope on maybe more than once in ways that really cause your parents big problems. Here, this child in this picture, is a staged picture, is alone, but when children are unsupervised, when they're out there with no adult to guide them and to ensure their safety, bad things can happen. Certainly they can go into water, and many of them do. They can be lost and not easily found and die of exposure. They can wander into traffic or onto railroad tracks. Many bad things can happen. Here's some of the details from the study. And the conclusion was wandering is relatively common. So for children with autism. If you have a child with autism, you know this, or are aware of it, or you're aware of it from other families that you know that have a child with autism, where the child wanders. This graphic is not specific to children with autism, but all children. And you notice that the 1-year-olds, well, they don't drown too much. They're not in pools or in they drown in bathtubs, sadly. But the big spike is 1 to 3, kind of this 1 to 3, 1 to 4 year age, and many of our children with autism stay in that age range developmentally. That's why I think we have so much risk. Their judgment is more limited, or maybe not good at all, and their mobility gets a bit better as they're a little bit older, and they become just real risky in that way. So I mentioned that it's very likely the leading cause of death for children with autism up to about age 10. We know from data from the Florida Department of Vital Statistics that for children from 2017, we did an analysis of this. 10% of the children who drowned in the state of Florida were children with autism. 10% of all the children who drowned were children with autism, which is really strange because only the children with autism make up just about 1% of the child population. What that means, you do the numbers on it, is that children with autism are about 10 times more likely to drown in Florida than a typically developing child. Be really, really careful on this. I think it's due to a lack of self-preservation skills. Most children, by the time they're 4, 5, they can kind of get a sense of danger. And our children with autism tend not to. Many of them, you might describe your child as fearless. They're totally fearless. That can be good, but it can be terrible too in relation to safety. We want children to have a good appreciation for risk and danger, and many of them simply do not have that. What has to happen then? Parents, teachers, other members of the family, other caregivers have to supplement with much tighter observation, supervision. Elopement is, as I mentioned, a big topic, and I'm going to move into that for a few minutes now. I want to show a brief video from one of my colleagues, Dennis DeBod, who's the leading police trainer and expert in many of these areas. And it's on elopement. And it's filmed most of it right up the coast here in Florida and Port St. Lucie area. But these are real parents who've agreed to participate with their child, children with autism.
Police fire rescue. I have a disabled child who ran away from my home.
Missing persons are the most frequent autism-related police calls.
Ma'am, calm down. Where's he at?
And the most deadly. Less independent adults can wander away from group homes than caregivers. But the majority of lost and wandering calls will involve children. The reporters will be their parents.
Okay, she just the officer. Ma'am, calm down. Where's she at? I know where she is if you calm down and listen to me, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
They are often described as escape artists and runners who are prone to quick escapes into the community from homes, from schools, or while shopping or traveling. They become adept at choosing when to escape. During the night, for example, when parents are sleeping. Older children, teens, and adults may cover great distances in a short period of time. The escape can also occur when parents and caregivers become injured or incapacitated, ill, or otherwise occupied, even briefly, using a restroom, taking a call, caring for a sibling. The wandering problem is enhanced since runners typically do not conceptualize that they are running away. They may be just returning to a favorite place or going back to look at something attractive. recently seen through the car window on a trip. After all, they do not feel lost, do not seek help, and are very content to be where they are at, alone and in danger.
See the monkey?
Yes.
Mom time, mom time.
8-year-old Brandy likes to play with her sister, likes playing with her rabbit, and likes to have fun on the computer. She also likes to run away.
Woke up Wednesday morning at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were getting ready. We're going to get ready for school. Came out into the family room and saw that the chain lock was down. Looked around really fast and saw that Brandy wasn't here.
This morning, Brandy propped a chair under the front door and tried the chain lock. When this failed, she found a pail in the utility room and tried for the chain to the side door. She then made her way to the family room, where she had success, and slipped off the back door chain lock. Brandy worked the locks open, scurried through the backyard, and eyed the fence gate. She worked the gate open and wandered away from the safety of her home and into danger. When Brandy's frantic parents discovered her missing, Mom called 911 and drove off to search.
I don't want to rescue.
Yeah, thank you. There is a naked girl in my backyard. We don't know where she comes from.
You know how old she is?
I don't know where she goes.
Man, listen.
She's running in the backyard of every house. It's a little girl. She's running. Yes. She's naked.
Yeah, I know. I think she's autistic.
Oh.
She doesn't live too far away from there. Let me see if I can get a hold of Mom.
Do you know where she lives?
We're going to try to call Mom, okay?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Brandy removed her clothes, wandered that quarter of a mile, and was discovered in a neighbor's pool. Although attracted to water, Brandy does not know how to swim.
911, please fire and rescue.
I have a disabled child who ran away from my home.
The autistic child.
Yes.
Okay. The officer, ma'am, calm down.
Where she is?
I know where she is if you calm down and listen to me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hold on, and I'm going to get the officers who have her. Hold on.
Thank you.
All right.
I got there, and there were 3 officers there when I got there. I got Brandy dressed. They told me that she wasn't wearing anything.
For Brandy and others with autism, the touch of certain clothes or fabrics are a sensory overload. Brandy's mom was grateful to hear that the officers knew something about autism.
They were very, very nice. They have been going through training so that they understood that she has autism, that she does run.
Drowning is a leading cause of death for people with autism. Children and adults all too often seek out and enter water sources without knowing how to swim.
Daniel, you did awesome. High five.
These less independent individuals lack both the ability to recognize danger and the ability to avoid it. Thoroughly search all nearby water sources. They may be found in or near rivers, lakes, creeks, ponds, pools, and fountains. Search permanent or seasonal pools, retention ponds, parks, and golf courses. They may also be dangerously attracted to vehicles and wander into traffic or attempt to enter nearby homes or dwellings. They may wander onto train tracks in elevated places, rooftops, and bridges. Search hiding places such as unlocked or abandoned cars, trucks, vehicles, and boats. They may seek alleys and dumps where they may find refuge under a mattress and between sofa cushions or inside discarded furniture and appliances. Search abandoned industrial, commercial, and housing properties.
Okay, 4 copy.
units responding, 50-year-old male.
When an autism missing person report is taken, alert dispatchers to expect follow-up calls from citizens who report suspicious persons near roadways or vehicles.
What can I tell them the issue is?
If you have an autistic child, you can call in and talk to our records clerk, and she can pull up your address. It'll give us the address. It gives us the closest cross streets. And she would put the information in it, and there would be a button up here and say caution or something, and we'd hit that button and pull it up, and it would tell us, just like that does, how to get to that address. It would also tell us that there's an autistic child there, and you could put all your information.
Encourage families to provide key information to the 911 database.
You can go say hi.
Get to know people with autism wherever they live, work, or go to school.
What color is this truck? Red, right?
Together, you can learn to recognize and respond to each other in a safe, non-stressful environment.
Pencil and a fire helmet. You want it? That's you. That's yours.
When you call 911, it's not a normal thing in your life. It's an exceptional event when 911's dialed. And it's overwhelming for the normal person. So you take somebody on the spectrum, now you have fire trucks and police cars coming in with lights and sirens. It's extremely overwhelming. The more we could introduce them to the trucks and the personnel and our gear and our uniforms, it's better off for them. The fact that, you know what, when that event really happens, they might have a little something under their belt. They already been in the truck once, so it might show some comfort, give them a little direction on what's happening. So it's really important. And the more we do it, the better. Every year we do it.
Very nice.
He's there to help you, right?
The more encounters they have with the trucks, the more comfortable they're going to be in the long run.
Come back here.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay. As I mentioned, you saw a lot of Florida in there and some Detroit area as well. Dennis had been from Detroit. I think we see some of the rundown stuff. I don't think that's Florida. It doesn't look like Florida to me. Anyway, as I mentioned, I'll use the terms elopement, running away, and more or less interchangeably. But we know what that means, where they're leaving an area where they're going to be safe to go to an area where they're not safe. Sadly, another thing here is that half the families tell us, as late as 2011, that they didn't get information about elopement from a professional. With CARD now, that absolutely won't be the case, because any new family coming into CARD is going to get quite a bit of information about elopement and safety, water safety, all of those topics. But in many parts of the country, it's still probably the case. If you know a family that has a child with autism and they're not aware of these things, urge them to make contact with CARD. We sadly, I'm doing this at the end of October 2020, but 2 weeks ago, a little 5-year-old boy from Boynton Beach drowned, boy with autism. And I'm pretty sure his family had not registered with CARD. Had they, they would have gotten information about helping to prevent elopement and drowning. But if you know a family that's not registered with CARD, urge them to do so, please. Elopements from school are not as common as elopements from home, but they make big news. And the schools are absolutely every bit as responsible for maintaining the safety of a child as a family. And they've got to be really careful about that. And I mentioned Avante. This became a national sensation and showed the strength of the problem. Why do they do it? We do have some indication from behavior analytic literature. Access to attention for some is a reason. they run away and people come chase them, and it can be the kid can almost make it into a fun event, and we have to be careful that that doesn't happen. Access to tangibles, either a specific place they want to get to or things they want to see. Oh, I've been down by the park, by the lake at the park, and there were little baby ducks. I really want to see those, or go on the swings there, or there were really nice acorns. I want to go get some more of those. Automatic, self-stimulatory, sensory could be some of it. And then escape from situations the child doesn't want, aversive situations, things they dread. Oh, you're going to go to the dentist at 11 o'clock, and they really fear that, so out the back door and gone. All of those, and these things can interplay. There can be, it can be different things that cause it for your child. But the pattern is there for most, and it's important to recognize that so that we can recognize when they may be at greater risk. Our behavioral techniques in terms of assessment are some of the main tools for helping to deal with this for a child with a serious runaway elopement problem. So working with a behavior analyst may be one of the best ways to deal with this. After you've worked with your CARD support person, check in with them, say, you've got a problem with this, and let's see what we can do. Our friend Dennis, who made that video, he has this emergency contact form. It's available at no cost at autismriskmanagement.com, autismriskmanagement.com. Dennis was the first with this more than 20 years ago. It's been stolen by a lot of other agencies, but he has it. Having something like this done well in preparation is a really good thing. Having it electronically so it can be sent, having a child's photo, a good description, update this as the child gets bigger. Places they may go, things that may attract them can be important. This is also critical for parents and caregivers to pre-plan what will happen in an emergency. You don't want to plan for an emergency during the emergency. You want to do that ahead of time and hope you don't have that emergency. Here are some of the details of what's on that form. You noticed in the video that they, in St. Lucie County, will be able to take and put emergency information on there to alert the dispatcher to your child's special status. It's worth a try by calling your police agency for your jurisdiction, where you live, but not all are capable or willing to do that. The local police agency would then share that with the 911 in the region. That may happen, that may not. I encourage you to try doing that. It can also be helpful for fire as well, and they would share that with fire on the dispatch, because if firefighters get to your house and there's a fire, children in general, but children with autism specifically, will often hide, will duck, cover, stay in a closet or under a bed in fear or sensory overload, and it makes it harder for the firefighters to find it. And the firefighters will work super hard to get a child out of there. And if they know there's a child there, they will go to do anything they can do to get the child out. So do that if you can. And law enforcement training is available. We're doing that. We have a grant to do much more of it. But each year we do training with the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office and at Port St. Lucie with the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. There's a lot of this available out there right now. Your local police agency should have had training for their officers in autism to understand the characteristics and how to work with people with autism safely. If they don't, urge them to do so and team up with other parents and bring that to their attention. I mentioned electronic tracking, which I think is one of the best approaches. Not a silver bullet, it's no magic. It's part of layers of support that we need to do this kind of thing. CARD makes them available in Palm Beach County through a grant from the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office for families that are free and reduced price lunch status. For families that are more financially well off, we'll help guide you to where you can easily make the arrangements to get them with Project Lifesaver directly. Here's our Project Lifesaver person. It's actually Gene Saunders, who now lives in Port St. Lucie. He was the one who founded this. It's the largest agency doing this kind of thing in the world, and they're responsible for thousands of rescues of children, mostly children with autism. So I note here at the top that a comprehensive search for a missing child must rely on local law enforcement professionals. Parents, I know, want to think, oh, we'll be able to do it. We got 2 or 3 kids and a neighbor, and we'll do it. You absolutely can't do it. The kid can be far away very quickly. You don't know where they went. You need to cut the police in on this thing. They've got the capacity. They have the officers, they have the vehicles, they have the boats if need be, they have dogs to help quickly track a child, helicopters, they have the communication systems, they have all of that, and they have the training, and they certainly have the dedication to do this. So cut them in on it as soon as possible. A problem we see here with this is that law enforcement at times are not notified. That was the case with this little boy Avante again. Right? Here he is. At his school, they may have waited 45 minutes to an hour before contacting 911. On the family side, there can be similar delays. Those delays do not help anyone. If the child is found and you find them, they were hiding in the garage, they were in a cabinet or something, the police will be happy to know the child is safe. But delaying is not a good thing. If the child has wandered from school, you absolutely want to make certain that there's an immediate call. And parents need to be prepared to tell the school, our child has a problem with elopement, with wandering. Don't keep that secret. Don't keep that secret at all. Make sure you communicate that and make sure that it is documented. And then ask that if the child has wandered, you want to be notified immediately after the call to 911 has gone in. We see incidents. There was a sad case in Hillsborough County where there was a delay that was almost an hour before it was called in by the school. The child was later found drowned nearby in a water, in a pond. Had that call gone in immediately, that child might well have been saved. So make sure the school people are calling it in, and they'll commit to that for you. Keep your eyes on the prize. Close supervision is really the best thing you can do. You can't watch a child every single minute, but supervise them very closely. Adding some locks. These kind of locks are good. The one you see with the keyed deadbolt is not allowed due to Florida building codes, but many families are using it. I can't stop them. Having some of these installed much higher up on the door, the ones with a little thumb latch, can be good. And parents are increasingly using coded locks. The coded locks are probably the way to go. I probably need to update my pictures. Where you have to code out to go out and change the code, because the child may often try to figure it out. If they're there trying to figure it out, move them away from the door. Don't let them have an opportunity to spend and perseverate on that and crack the code. It may be wise to have a whole house system. If you do, the system can be set for immediate alert, immediate alarm for unauthorized exit. If you can call your alarm company and they can do it on a service call or guide you through that. But it may be one of your best bets for safety from keeping your child contained within the house. In terms of elopements from school, again, tell the school if your child wanders, and if they're missing, insist that the law enforcement is notified immediately. We have good policies in school for things like this, having head counts. The halls are monitored, hall passes. So schools tend to be fairly safe places for most of these kids. Trips can be a problem. That's why we see extra supervision, which is important on any kind of trip. But school can be a tricky place. And there at school, if a child does tend to wander, ask that they do a functional behavior assessment for these wandering problems that can be part of the behavior intervention plan as part of the child's IEP. So, and there should be policies and procedures governing this at your school. Sadly, most schools do not have policies governing an elopement. They'll have policies for shooters, they'll have policies for tornadoes, policies for abduction, but not for elopement. Any autism program should have this, and ask that they have these. Who will do the searching? Who will notify 911, and how quickly will they do that? Who will notify you as a parent? Who will notify the rest of the school? And if you're told, well, our school resource officer will handle this, there is no way they can handle a comprehensive search. The community 911 response, your sheriff or police agency, they're the ones who need to be in on this. It takes multiple officers, takes the full capacity, and a school resource officer, no matter how fast they can run or how fast they can drive their cart, is not going to be able to do the job. So get the call out there. Most of our special schools use devices like this. You see this door that has an interlock, and there's a delay on it before it can open. But most of our community schools, for the children who are more fully included, don't have that. So we need to be careful with that. And some of the autism programs at schools, the programs that are not center schools, but rather community schools, may need to look at increasing their the security arrangements there to keep the kids secure. Oh, a related problem is for schools, and it can be for parents as well, is we just get so preoccupied with our phones. We've seen this with paraprofessionals, and even in some cases with teachers, where they're playing with their phone during playground time or other times when they should be supervising the children. Most quality autism programs have policies that do not let the teachers or the paras play with their phone during times when they should be actively working with the children, supervising. And I'd hope that that's the case at your school. If that's not, you want to ask and urge them to adopt such a policy. We did have a proposal that I worked with the Autism Society of Florida on. Didn't pass, but we'll come back on this, to have each school district have policies governing elopement. Broward County has such policies, and that's really good, but they're about the only one. And I think all districts really need to have that. Not talking too much about interaction specifically with law enforcement, but this is a tough area. We're familiar with these small number of cases that go way wrong. Here, this one in North Miami a few years ago was a tough one. It's probably a good idea to get your child, if they're in the community at all without you, a card, an identification card. And one I like quite a bit is the wallet card, and it's a specialized ID card for people with autism. It has some tips on it for what to do. This page shows the tips for the person with autism. Face the officer when he is talking to you. Do not turn your back to the officer unless he tells you to do so. Keep your hands in front of you so the officer can see them. These kinds of things. It's available for free at www.justdigit.org. And it was done in conjunction with our card center in Miami, at the University of Miami, and the Coral Gables Police Department. So there's some good people there, and they're doing it for free, and I want to promote their good efforts. Water safety, a big one. The elopement opens the door to child being in danger. When we had the drownings for Jared and Caitlin, I thought that we just get all the kids in classes, that'll be it. But I found from talking to people who are expert in these areas, the water safety experts, that it's not it. It's at least three things, and you see an ABC kind of situation here. Adult supervision is really critical. When children are in a pool, in the water at the ocean or other place, adults who are paying attention, not drinking, not also cooking hamburgers, adults who are right there. And if it's in a pool, there need to be dedicated watchers. And for a child who doesn't know how to swim, don't count on floaties. Those aren't, don't count on that. There needs to be American Academy of Pediatrics says arm length supervision, dedicated people watching. And that often is not what's happening. And that's when children drown. And when a child drowns, it's not like in TV where people are screaming and they're bobbing up and down. That's a stage where we can easily save someone. But if a child's in real trouble, they're underwater. And if they come up at all, they come up and they take a breath and they don't have time to scream. And then they're back down. So it takes active alertness to the water and the child is in distress to catch it. Barriers such as fencing, pool fences, professionally installed. If you have a pool and a child with autism, you really want to consider that. Better than alarms, and in addition to barriers, such as self-locking and self-latching gates. Our building codes call for that. Many older homes, they get bypassed or they don't get maintained, but those need to be in place as well. And then classes, getting your child with autism to learn to swim. In Broward County, we're lucky. You're very lucky down there because we do have Swim Central, and that I'll talk about in a minute. But here in Palm Beach County, we have some really good resources through our Drowning Prevention Coalition, and people who are really good at teaching any child with a disability how to swim. So much water, it's a tremendous investment. I mentioned the issue there. Pool and spa drowning deaths for children, Florida leads the country in most years. We're not the biggest state, of course. California is by far bigger than us, but we do have the largest number of deaths due to, just in pools and spas. Children drown in a lot of other ways as well. So, fortunately, and I'd like to promote this, Broward County has Swim Central. It's been going now for, 20 years or more. And it's a cooperative between the school district, the county commission, and their Children's Services Council. And kids get trained how to swim at a basic level, how to swim to make sure you're not going to drown. And it's a tremendous program. Most of the highly developed countries in the world have a similar program. Broward County and Juneau, Alaska are the only two places I can find in the United States that have this. We can afford this as a country, and this would have a tremendous benefit for our children with autism. Unfortunately, even the Broward program doesn't get to the children who are 3 and 4, where there's still considerable risk. So if you have a child with autism, you still have to pay close attention and maybe try to get them swimming lessons as well. A safe swimmer pledge, the water watcher tags you see in this corner, a lanyard that whoever is the designated water watcher would wear. A lot of good things like that we should have in place. For transportation safety, there's a lot that we can do. The child is a more passive agent in this in some cases, but not always. Observing a charter school with the principal there a few years ago, we saw that 21% of the kids were arriving at school not with a seatbelt on or in their car seat with the seatbelt. A lot of the kids just give you a razzmatazz. They give you a hard time. They threaten to tantrum, and so we settle for them not being buckled up. Can't do that. You've got to have the child safely secured. The school districts may insist that the child has this easy-on vest that can be then latched into a special transportation van. We hope that doesn't happen often, but if your child is really a rambunctious kid and very tantrumous, that may be something that has to be done. The schools have to ensure that the child can be safely transported. So, but there's some tips for car seat refusal. Our card staff can help you with that. There are a lot of things that we can do to make sure that if you go to a new car seat, it's gradual and done positively. We help the child predict the new car seat situation. And here's the whole sequence. So if you get the PowerPoint, you can see how you would want to proceed if you get to a new car seat. Having a better car seat, this is a really super expensive one by BMW, but some of the Britax and other better quality ones. They can be expensive, but paying a little bit more money may allow the child to stay in the same seat and for it to have greater adjustability, which can be really to your advantage and fewer problems. I'm going to move to some of the school issues here. Safety on a child's IEP is something you want to encourage parents to ask for. In this survey, 2010, the question was asked, has there ever been a safety skill listed on as an instructional goal in your child's IEP? And 81% of the parents said no. This is parents of children with autism. But then the number of parents who considered safety skills to be a very important part of their child's education, 93%. There's a similar study done by a researcher named Ivy, who does the same thing with teachers. And the results are very similar. Teachers know it's super important, but we're not getting these skills on the IEP, and we really need to do that. So I want to encourage parents to do that. And depending on your child's skill level, if your child has limited language, the child should know their name. Be able to answer simple questions and respond to simple receptive directions such as stop, come here, put that down. They should have an ID card and be able to know how to present it to people and understand the appropriate situations in which they would do that. Situations in which they recognize a uniformed law enforcement officer, recognize them as a safe person, things like that. And we can, there are a lot of good things we can do for safety for children. On the home safety front, we'll come back to some other school safety issues. Look at your home. Look at where there's possible hazards, some poison hazards, or if you're using pods and the pods are right there on top of the washing machine, the detergent pods, boy, that can be too tempting for a child with autism. And those are some pretty dangerous products. I would recommend you don't use the pods. Even if you keep them high on a shelf, they're tempting, they're visually enticing. But here's some other tips. You may want to consider not using a bed frame. Many of these children are doing trampoline on their bed. The trampolining can result in the child popping off, breaking the wrist, hurting their head, or worse. Children don't need bed frames. The adults need bed frames to get them additional height. Child doesn't need the bed frame. Put tall dressers in the closet. If a child climbs up on their drawers, they have to pull out the drawers and use it as steps. And then sometimes they climb up on that and use that to jump onto the bed. Our kids with autism can be pretty creative. Secure any furniture that can fall over. Some of you with two-story houses or basement may have safety gates. And if one safety gate doesn't do it, you may need two. You may be using zip ties to help secure those. You want to make your child's bedroom the child's safe room. You need a place where if you have to use the restroom or you have to do something, you're reasonably safe that the child will be secure in that location. So make that as safe as you can. And never leave your child alone in the tub. You just can't do that. And my suggestion again on the kitchen, make the kitchen a no-go zone. Your children are familiar from school with tape areas on the floor that help mark areas out. Say, this is an area you can't go in. This is the teacher's cabinet. You don't go to that in that zone. And here you can see the risk from an oven. Most ovens aren't secured, so that if a child were to climb up on this and put their full weight on it, it could topple over. And each year there are deaths to children from something just like this. So make the kitchen a no-go zone. Here's a photo of a stage situation. It's a little toy doll person here. But you can see how dangerous this is. A child in St. Lucie County, Florida, died a few years ago from just this situation. The child, instead of calling for help, say, I'll figure this out. I'll make the TV work. I'll climb up there and get it. Fortunately, most of our TVs are lighter than these old heavy tube sets now, but the problem is still evident. And we need to help make sure that doesn't happen to any of them. Boy, do we have problems with poisoning. We know that children with autism are at about 8 times greater risk for poisoning. Fortunately, most poisonings do not result in death, but they can be very, very serious. Purell and all of the cleaners that we're using all the time now during COVID it can be very, very dangerous. So secure those, keep them out of the way, so that, but it's not just poisons such as lye or that are poisons. There are a large array of things, medicines, blood pressure medicine, most medicines can be very dangerous. And if a child sees those as candy, we're in big, big trouble. I'm increasingly concerned with the detergent pods. The concentration of detergent is very high. And when a child does bite into them, if they crack the film on it, they often then the material will squirt into their mouth and into their lungs. The Canadian Medical Association recommends that parents take their child immediately to an emergency room for that after rinsing it out. So if you have your cell phone, your smartphone, and you don't have the poison control number, please put it on your phone. I'm going to stall for a minute while you do that. Ask others in your household, older children, spouse, other caregivers, the child's grandparents to do that. It's my phone. I have it on here 3 times, actually. 800-222-1222. It should be on everybody's phone who has a child with autism. Ask your child's teacher if they have it on there too, and suggest that they do. So lock things away, locks on cabinets, and more than just the child proofing. Get the best child proofing you can, because with a child with autism, you need it. You may want to consider an alarm to the garage, because that's where we're going to have more dangerous items, is in the garage. But you may want to have an alarm on the door out to the garage. So, and new dangers, the watch batteries, these little button batteries, can be very dangerous, and they can show up in all kinds of places on a greeting card, and they can be very dangerous if a child needs them. As well as these little magnets now. These can be very high powered, and we see cases where a child will eat one, and often more than one. If they get in their as they get into their digestive system, they pinch together and cause a terrible problem where the child requires an operation to get them out. So it can be fatal. These small magnets, best bet is don't have them around your child at all. Some ideas on fire safety. Schools through this period, but most years don't have any fire deaths at all across the country. Schools are excellent at fire safety. There's quite an alert situation here. There are fire alarms, there are fire drills, and we should use some of that, take advantage of some of that. Most children on the home front will not pay attention to a fire alarm, a home fire alarm. We have to teach them to do that. We've had 2 studies at FAU by David Garcia and Giovanna O'Donnell that showed that children with autism could easily be taught to respond to a fire alarm and to alert adults and then exit the house and go to a safe location. You can easily do that with your child. A little bit, and a BCBA or a speech language pathologist could easily teach these critical skills to a child. In the Garcia study, the total time was 45 minutes to teach the child to do this altogether. That's a pretty good deal. We have another related issue for fire alarms. I know of parents who ask that their child be excused from a school fire alarm, or where they keep them home on a day when they find out there will be a fire alarm, or other drills. That's just not a good practice. In the event that there is a real fire or a drill where things are in a real emergency, your child will not know how to respond, likely will respond terribly, putting others at risk as well as themselves. Not a good idea. And if you're a teacher, don't allow that to happen, please. Parents, help make sure. They may need additional drills to do things. So make sure your house has good working fire alarms. There are alarms that can say the child's name. I don't see any data that show that those are better. I think I think best are the research-based approaches like Garcia, which is in the research literature, that show that it can be taught to a child fairly easily in as little as 45 minutes. So, but get alarms and make sure they're working. Try to make safety a common special interest for your child. Your child has special interest. Books on safety for young children are readily available inexpensively. Many of them are printed in China, yeah, but boy, they're out there now. And all kinds of topics and all kinds of cute kid themes. Make sure they're in your child's home library and ask your teacher to get more safety books for your child. If you're a teacher, get them in your school library and in your classroom collection. Okay, those would be important topics there. Look, there's just a few of them. And stop, drop, and roll. If you're on fire, if you're in a house or place that is on fire, you get out after alerting others. The child should just get out, and the adults should make sure others are out. So, but try to make safety a special interest. Your child could be the car safety captain. We don't start rolling. We don't go until everybody has their seatbelt on. A child with autism with good perseverative skills and good sense of routine could be a real plus right there. I mentioned that law enforcement training is available. We count on parents to help urge their local law enforcement to do this kind of thing. So please take advantage of that and see what you can do to make sure your local law enforcement has it. There's an excellent material if you have older children, adolescents, by Emily Island called Be Safe, the movie. Be Safe, the movie. And it features autism actors with autism, and regular police in going through a series of 7 scenarios where there'd be contact between a person with autism and law enforcement. Excellent for secondary, the middle, high school, young adult people. But bring your child together with law enforcement. Ask your teachers to have the resource officer come in and talk to them about what they do. And have firefighters come in as well to help let them know what they do, so that the child is desensitized and has some awareness of what's going on there. This training is available. It's out there. The Autism Society of America does that. They've provided training for well over 20,000 law enforcement officers. But we have 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the country, so it's a tough nut to crack. We need to do much more there to make that happen. As a parent, urge some collaboration on this with community safety organizations. For swim lessons, maybe you don't have a Project Lifesaver in your county. We do pretty much in our card area, and we're working with Martin County now to try to help promote that. But see what you can do with other families to make some of these things happen. And check in on the Centers for Disease Control. Their updates on poisoning and other child safety issues are some really good things. Overall, help make safety a shared value. I think until recently, within the last 10 years maybe, parents, when they had a safety issue with their child ran away or ingested poison, I think they tended to keep that quiet, seeing it perhaps as a failure on their part. Well, if you have a child with autism, these are going to be frequent issues. These things will come up. I think as we share that, as parents share it with other parents, we help to get a broader understanding of how big a problem this is. We share strategies that can allow it to be less of a problem. And that, I think, is critically important. So help it be a shared value that that's held by all members of our autism spectrum disorder community. It will be to our advantage to do that. I'm closing here with this. If you're not registered with CARD, please do so. Here's our statewide number. Here's our number for the FAU Center. Here's my email, jscott@fau.edu. I welcome your email on this topic. This is something I'm very, very actively engaged in. I have a 2020 book on this with Woodbine Publishers that has just come out. And there's a little pitch for my book. You can see that right there. It's only 20 something bucks, but it's got a whole entire book's worth of tips for parents on safeguarding your child with autism. Thank you for listening to this. I hope you've made it all the way through to this point. Share this information with other caregivers, and do your very best to keep your child with autism safe. Thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye now. Bye-bye.